Hello, I'm John Rossi, a touring drummer with the love of all things animal. When I'm on the road, I visit as many zoos, aquariums... Hey, wait a minute. What's going on? Hey, what's going on there? Hello? Hello? Hello?
We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you Rossifari Zoo News. News you can use from the world of zoos and conservation. Every week, we bring you breaking news and analysis from around the globe, featuring the animals you love and the people who care for them. And here's your anchorman, John Rossi.
Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to Rossifari Zoo News, your look at everything going on in the worlds of zoos, aquariums, conservation, and general animal weirdness. So, y'all, this week has been a full week of recovery time for me. I know for those of you who follow along, you know that I've been doing lots of cool things. And of course, if you listened to Tuesday's episode, you know all about the tree kangaroo workshop that I got to attend in Lincoln, Nebraska, and how amazing that was. But I gotta tell y'all, it's been nonstop. And when I say it's been nonstop, I got home a couple days ago. And I had left home in August. The last time that I was in Buffalo, I left in shorts and a t-shirt. I returned to 4 inches of snow falling. I missed fall, y'all. Like there wasn't a Buffalo fall for John. And it was really a lot of really good stuff on the road. Some really great gigs, some really cool interviews, so many amazing animal moments and animal people moments and all that jazz. And I really loved it all. But it was a lot. That's a long time to be gone with no breaks. And honestly, the way that I structure my weeks, a lot of times there really weren't any breaks. I was doing 8 to 9 shows a week, plus some understudy rehearsals that I was helping to run, plus doing as many zoo and interviewee things as I could. So it was a lot. It's nice to be home. That being said, after just a couple days off, I did launch today, which is Thursday when I'm recording this, with 2 interviews plus having to write and record this episode. So my idea of downtime might be different from most of y'all's, but I am loving what I'm doing. And I've got to tell y'all, the 2 interviews that I did today are both just really special. One is a returning guest, an absolutely famous name in the conservation world, and someone who I've become friendly enough with, where our first interview was a very serious interview, and our second interview was just us chatting, which is always more fun in my book. And then the second interview was with someone you've never heard of, I promise you that. But you're gonna love him, and it's actually he does something that I've been looking for since literally I launched this podcast. That episode was one of my initial ideas for an episode for the podcast, and I didn't even know if such a human existed. And now I have found him, and it turns out he also loves tree kangaroos. So that's not what we talk about, but, we do talk about tree kangaroos a little bit because, we're us. But, yeah, I'm really excited. So lots of cool stuff coming down the pipeline for the podcast. And that includes the fact that I have officially started a couple of early chats, not too much yet, but I've chatted with a few people about this year's Rossifari Old-Timey Non-Denominational Holiday Special. Working on some music, working on some guests, working on some ideas, even have my first script forming in my head, my first little scripted bit. So don't y'all worry, it is coming. It's crazy to me that, I remember right before I left thinking I'm starting to have some ideas for this, but it's so far away. It's summer. And now, it's the middle of November and I've got to get writing, y'all. So yeah, the ball is rolling. Before I get to the actual Zoo Newsy stuff, I started talking about this and I debated whether I was going to say something here or not, but I have undebated. I'm not going to go into a ton of details about this, and I'm not going to turn it into a pity party because what I do, both with Rossifari and with drumming, is amazing and unique and awesome. But I was talking with a friend recently, about the challenge of gigging and doing this zoo stuff all around the country with people that aren't around all the time. Like, I can't just call up my best buds and be like, hey, let's go grab a beer, or like, let's go meet for dinner. I'm incredibly lucky that I can go to almost any city or, even many regional areas in the country and find a friend like that I want to hang out with and that I already know and stuff. But like, if something's got me down, or if I really need, to talk to someone, you want that face, you want a hug, right? I was going to say a face-to-face interaction, but let's be honest, you want a hug, outside of Zoe, who is obviously here, thank goodness. But not when I'm on gigs a lot. The people I want to hug from are like my buddy Taylor, my buddy Luke, or Randy, who hosts the special every year, or obviously Danny, right? These are the people that you want to either be there to hug or to get a hug from when things are tough. And, you don't have that when you're traipsing around from zoo to zoo and you get these incredible relationships, but they're not close, and the same is true with gigs. It's this really weird thing where, I just spent 6 weeks in Philadelphia spending untold hours with the people that I was playing with and being open and honest and sharing and caring and eating and drinking and sharing our art and sharing our hearts and all the things, right? And like my buddy Ken, who's been a really good friend for a while, even got to go and meet red pandas, he and his wife Heather, which was like literally a dream for them. And that's all amazing. And then, we stay in touch. We text a little bit, of course. But, like, you go from seeing them every day to, I'm going to see Ken again in February. We've got a gig then. So that's cool. But sometimes it's a lot further than that. And I was actually talking to a friend of mine about this the other night, and it hit me that it's truly a thing that we all struggle with in that industry, and then also with Rossifari. And it's interesting. I think I'm grateful for the technology that allows us all to stay connected. As a matter of fact, I keep saying I was talking to this friend, and her name is Brianna, and she's incredible. But I mean, we did one show together once. We got dinner one time in a group. Like, we are friends, but like, that's how it works. Like, we had these super deep conversations and then we moved on. And then, 4 months later, had another one on Instagram. It's all very fascinating to me. And I just kind of wanted to share that because I love sharing all of the cool, ooh, I'm in this town and banging the drums here and rock and roll. You guys know that's my normal vibe, right? Just shouting rock and roll. Anyway, but it's interesting to think about. Like even the kangaroo, the tree kangaroo workshop. I loved it so much. And there have been some texts and some emails, but like that group won't be together for 2 years. It's crazy to think about. So anyway, I don't really have a point. I just wanted to share, but let's get to the story, shall we? All right. We'll be back after this quick break.
Please join me for the Nature Disturbed podcast, a podcast about the good, the offensive, and the confusing parts of the animal kingdom, from the sewers of Florida searching for alligators. Oh no, did I forget to put the bins out? To the surface of Mars, investigating the possibility of life beyond Earth. Sorry, I had some bubbles lodged in my throat. I said, to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, all while interviewing scientists about their research along the way. Do you like comedy, whimsical storytelling, and learning about the natural world? If not, then you'll hate the Nature Disturbed podcast.
All right, y'all. So we are going to start off with a headline story this week, and it's a good one, and it's a short one. I don't know if it's going to be my longest story this week, but it's a headline because it's so dang important. The government shutdown, the longest in the history of the United States, has been ended. And look, I'm not going to get into the political side of all of this. I have seen a whole lot of people on each side blaming the other, and also just, saying, the even Democrats are mad at Democrats and Republicans are mad at Republicans. Everyone's just mad at everyone nowadays, right? But what I care about for the purposes of this podcast. And please do not think that the fact that I do not get too political on here means that I do not care or engage in, that side of things in the country. It's just not what Rossifari is. But what matters to me is the same thing we've talked about on Zoo News basically every week since the shutdown started, which is that our friends at the Smithsonian's National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute will be reopening the doors on Saturday, actually, November 15th. The public is welcome back to the downtown campus, and there may be some food vendors and stuff that are closed, but the zoo will be zooing, which I am absolutely stoked to hear. It also means that I'm allowed to go and do interviews again at some point. Yay! But more importantly, this means that the incredible people that you have heard on this podcast and the incredible people that you haven't heard on this podcast but are going to, and also just my friends that are there that and even the people I don't know, it doesn't matter if I know them. There's so many incredible people there, and they're going to get paid, and they're going to have their crowds back, and they're going to be able to work on things like SSPs and stuff again, all the things. It's all back, and that is so incredibly exciting. Even if you think this shutdown should not have ended or whatever, we can still be happy for these people who now won't have to suffer anymore and who are just such amazing people. You can also be happy because I'm going to stop talking about this every week on the podcast now. So that is a bonus for everyone. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm just so excited, and I've been reaching out to a lot of my friends that are there, just, making sure they're okay and seeing how things are going and stuff. And now it looks like we're all going to be okay. I don't know why I said we. I'm not part of this, but yay. And that brings us to our births for the week. So the Dartmoor Zoo has announced the birth of an Amur leopard cub to Mom Lena and Dad Fredo. This is only the 15th cub born this year in the entire world, and given that Amur leopards are critically endangered, it's obviously a very important one. So congrats to the Dartmoor Zoo. 2 psychedelic rock geckos have hatched at Gladys Porter Zoo. The species was discovered back in 2010 and can only be found on 2 small islands off the coast of Vietnam. The babies will be staying behind the scenes, but you can see the parents serving as ambassadors for their wild counterparts as they are on habitat when you visit the Herpetarium at Gladys Porter Zoo, which is a really cool building, by the way. The San Diego Zoo Safari Park has welcomed a female Przewalski's horse to Mom Nikki and Dad Ziggy. It's the first foal born at the park since 2023. And don't forget that Przewalski's horses were extinct in the wild until they were released back into the wild through breeding programs. So again, this is just one of those species where every birth is incredibly important. And even though we have a lot of examples of species that either went extinct in the wild and then were reintroduced, or were going extinct and then were saved by, introduction programs and stuff like this, for some reason, to me, Przewalski's horses are always the one. When I see them, when I hear about them, they are what that side of zoos are to me. So seeing this is very cool. 2 mure chicks have hatched at the Georgia Aquarium, and this is actually the first time the species has ever hatched at the facility. These seabirds are known for having distinct and vivid summer plumage, and then separate and still distinct and vivid winter plumage, which is pretty rare in birds, and I think that's pretty cool. Monarto Safari Park has welcomed a giraffe calf to the tower. The mom is named Volta, and she's actually a first-time mom, but she's showing all the appropriate instincts, which is allowing staff to keep their distance. So they don't know a lot about the little one yet, but they do know that it's doing incredibly well. And then last but not least in this section this week, Dad, Mr. Wendell, and Mom, Winnie, have welcomed a new baby Tamandua to the family at the Memphis Zoo. When keepers rolled into the Animals of the Night building one morning, they discovered the little one and moved Mom and the baby off habitat to allow them to bond behind the scenes. pangolins. Both are doing very well. And that, of course, leads us to our deaths for the week. And we start off with Kibbo, a caracal at Sedgwick County Zoo, who has passed away. He was a goofball who was known for his adventurous spirit and was constantly seen wandering his habitat in search of a good time, always looking for enrichment or just, mischief to get into. Since he was the only caracal at the zoo, the habitat will remain empty until the zoo determines what to do with said habitat next. Werribee Open Range Zoo has said goodbye to Kulinda, a 13-year-old cheetah. At her geriatric age, Kulinda was experiencing multiple age-related issues that were being treated, but recently, as happens, the treatment stopped working as effectively as they could, so the decision was made to say goodbye. And while it's obviously always sad to say goodbye, 13 is a great age for a cheetah to live to, and the team can be incredibly proud of the life they gave her. Ulysses, a 25-year-old plains zebra who called the Como Park Zoo home, has passed away. Commonly called Yuli, the zebra had called the zoo home for 23 of its 25 years. And over the years, Yuli lived with a ton of different species, including giraffe, tortoises, and ostriches. He was known as the surrogate weird uncle to many giraffe calves over the years. At the time of his passing, he was the second oldest plains zebra in the AZA population. A necropsy will be performed to help the team better understand what led to his passing. Edith, a 15-year-old sea lion, has passed away at Georgia Aquarium after a battle with metastatic cancer. Once the cancer was discovered, the aquarium teamed up with the team at ZooAtlanta for additional diagnostics and treatments that included chemotherapy, which is not easy to administer to an aquatic animal. While Edith did pass away, the teams at both facilities did amazing work collaborating together to give her the best shot possible, and it's so worth noting that the team at the aquarium did a great job ensuring that she was content, healthy, and living the best life possible right until the end. And then our last two deaths this week are both unexpected ones. The Virginia Zoo is mourning the loss of a 21-year-old Siamang named Bali. After a quick decline in his energy and activity levels, Bali was taken in for an emergency examination, but passed away overnight. Necropsy results have not been returned yet, so the zoo is currently unaware of what happened, but I hope they are able to get some peace when they find out, because I think probably just about the hardest thing in the zookeeping field is losing an animal and not knowing why. And then last but not least, the Phoenix Zoo is also in mourning after the sudden loss of Fernando, the Linnaeus two-toed sloth. Back during the COVID lockdown, Fernando would make appearances on Zoom for staff meetings and even became a star on Cameo. In 2024, he underwent advanced imaging and was diagnosed with severe mineralization of the aorta and the aortic arterial branches. This past week, he was seen to have difficulty breathing, and despite immediate emergency veterinary care, he passed away. Fernando was such a light in a dark time for so many people at the zoo that the entire team is feeling the loss extra hard. And that brings us to the rest of our zoo news for the week. And, oh my God, I love this first story so much. Nuns are helping Chester Zoo develop a microchipping technique that will allow researchers to monitor the health and abundance of Lake Pátzcuaro salamanders, also known as achoques, a species found only in the single lake in their name, which I'm not going to try and say again, which is located in Mexico. These salamanders look very similar to axolotls, another species that can only be found in one lake. So picture an axolotl, but different name. So why are nuns involved? Well, frankly, that's none of your business. Okay, fine. No. All right, so the story goes back a long way to when nuns at a convent near the lake started using salamanders to make a traditional medicine, which, over time and combined with the water pollution and invasive fish populations led to the decline of the population of the animals in the lake. And so seeing this, About 150 years ago, the nuns decided to establish their own breeding population to help them continue to make their traditional medicines. The breeding program has been so successful that their population has reached over 300 individuals, which is double the amount of the animal left in the wild. Actually, some people estimate that the population may be as low as like 50 to 80, while others say around 150. And though there are other assurance populations in human care, including at the Chester Zoo, none of them are nearly as big as the one at the convent. There are 3 to 4 nuns who have a full-time job running the breeding program at a time, but they rotate between the ones that live at the convent because they also have to go and do like nunny things, Got to establish that habit. Any habits are what nuns wear if you didn't start school in a Catholic school like I did. And if you are wondering why I have issues, now you know. Anyway, individuals in the population at the convent, as well as some others from insurance populations, including the one at the Chester Zoo, were recently used to test a microchipping effort to help with the conservation of the species. And so far, it has been successful. And that's really cool because microchipping amphibians can be quite hard because they can literally like absorb and poop out the microchips if they're small enough. And if they're not, then they might be too large to end up being invasive to the animal's lifestyle. But in this case, the little chips, which are the size of a grain of rice, seem to be doing the trick. The nuns in question do still use their population of achoques to create their traditional medicine, which is claimed to cure coughs, asthma, and anemia, but they're also involved in these conservation efforts. And I think that's really fascinating. We often talk about how traditional medicine is one of the big problems with conservation, right? Whether it's rhino horn or pangolin scales, all these things that people think can, make their wieners harder or cure whatever, and they end up killing animals for it. And it's all BS. Now, I'm not saying that the nuns' medicine is BS, but I'm saying that I don't know anyone who started life and got asthma and then didn't get asthma anymore because of a convent in Mexico. But again, just because I haven't experienced it doesn't mean it's not a thing. But, all joking aside, when you think about it, right, like there would be so many people in this world who would automatically be like, oh my God, they're killing this animal to make traditional medicine out of it. That is so not okay. You cannot partner with them. But at the end of the day, if what you really care about is saving the species, and that's something that both these nuns and the conservationists in question actually care about, then you do what you have to do, And that's one of the interesting things that we talk about a lot when it comes to, I guess you really can't call these nuns indigenous people, but they've been there for a long time and they've had this land for a long time. And so they are, let's call it traditional knowledge, right? That has been passed down in this convent from generation to generation. And I know a lot of people, especially a lot of people that are studying conservation science that I talk to, who poo-poo the idea of partnering with indigenous people or who, accept that you have to do that because they're stakeholders for the land, but they don't love that you have to, quote, pretend that what they know is as valid as what our science has told us. But the smartest conservationists that I know, and what I've learned from watching teams like the team at Red Panda Network and like the team with the Tree Kangaroo Conservation Program, is that they do listen to and take these people seriously. And it really, really makes a difference. And so, yeah, teaming up with these nuns are, maybe not the people you'd want to team up with normally, but it's helping. And now we're going to be able to track the remaining population and learn more about them and understand them. And that's going to help with reintroduction efforts and with bolstering the population and with figuring out what we can do to save this species. And I just love that. But yeah, so go Chester Zoo. New research published in Zoobiology has looked at the impact of changing the feeding method of zoo-housed African lions from daily individual feedings indoors to a gorge and fast enriched group feeding outdoors method. The study showed that the outdoor method increased behavioral diversity and exploratory behaviors, increased activity in the females of the pride to more resemble their wild counterparts, and had no negative impacts on the social interactions that were observed during the study. Which all of that does seem to imply that feeding the lions in a more natural way can lead to more natural behaviors for the cats, which is obviously the goal at a lot of zoos. So cool kind of just way of looking at sometimes if we just mimic nature, kind of works out. The Denver Zoo Conservation Alliance has announced that Winnie, the 7-year-old southern tamandua, is pregnant. Assuming all goes well, this will be the first tamandua born at the zoo in over a decade. Santiago, who is the father, moved to the zoo earlier this year from the Nashville Zoo as part of a breeding recommendation by the SSP. All right, so this next story I could have placed in the deaths section, but it's a story beyond the loss, so I wanted to share it here. The Dallas Zoo has said goodbye to Zola, a 23-year-old western lowland gorilla who was an internet sensation due to his love of breakdancing and listening to Whitney Houston. Zola recently grew lethargic and eventually passed away despite receiving veterinary care. In fact, he actually didn't wake up from anesthesia during that care, and so the decision was made to euthanize him. But in this case, it wasn't just the Dallas Zoo that was in mourning, as Zola and his bachelor troupe were slated to move to the San Antonio Zoo to help open their new Congo Falls exhibit. To allow the team and the troupe at the Dallas Zoo to properly mourn their loss, this move has been postponed until the time is right, whenever that may be. Now, with that said, Congo Falls is still on schedule to open on time, as a family group was also slated to move to the zoo. This group, consisting of 3 females from ZooAtlanta and a male from the Houston Zoo, is still scheduled to arrive as originally planned, and assuming introductions go well, should be ready to be seen on Habitat when the exhibit is officially ready to open. But it's just fascinating to look at how one death not only affected 2 zoos, but this week, the Gorilla SSP was meeting at the Detroit Zoo, and I'm sure this was quite the topic at that meeting as well. And I found it such an interesting way of looking at how one single animal can have such a huge impact on so many facilities and people, beyond the obvious impact that they have as ambassadors of their wild, compatriots. And it's extra interesting to think, man, what if they didn't have a family and a bachelor troop coming in? What if they were just bringing in one troop of gorillas? What would have happened then? And I say that with the caveat that I fully believe that the zoos would have done the right thing. I'm in no way saying that the San Antonio Zoo would have been like, oh, well, too bad, send us gorillas. That's just not how that works. I know that. But, I also know that openings are a big deal and donors get to come early and see the things. And this raises a lot of money and a lot of publicity for the zoo. And again, none of that matters more than the welfare of the animals or the staff. Again, not saying that, in no way am I implying that anything bad would have happened. But I am saying that it would have created a lot of logistical nightmares. And it's just fascinating to think about that, especially when it comes to an incredibly social species like gorillas, right? And then on a side note, Zola really was a special gorilla. I got to spend time with the gorillas at the Dallas Zoo and even got to throw food to their bachelor group. So, it's a really sad loss, but also one really worth thinking about. And then I refuse to end this section on a sad note, so I'm going to do 2 happier stories. First of all, I want to give a huge shout out to the Pueblo Zoo, who has partnered with United Way, Pueblo County, and they're offering $1 off admission with the donation of a non-perishable item for the food bank. And then I'm also excited to announce that things look like they are going super well at the San Francisco Zoo. Interim co-CEO Cassandra Costello has really just taken the zoo back from the brink of all the issues I've talked about on here many times, all stemming from former CEO Tanya Peterson, who retired under much pressure. Costello has gotten the zoo in compliance with the city's audit requirements, which led to the release of $3 million from the city to the zoo that had been withheld when Peterson refused to cooperate with the audit. You know, like all on-board CEOs do. Costello has also made it a point to get to know the staff, especially the keepers, and so far, they are really pleased. The union is singing her praises, which is especially incredible after their recent vote of no confidence in Peterson before she left the zoo. This was not a happy union, and now they're very happy. The union has even been engaged in helping with the search for the next permanent CEO at the zoo, which is something that is really rare, but it shows the city's willingness to fix the mistakes of the recent past and the board's willingness to do the same. And I am just, I'm just so excited. I love the San Francisco Zoo so much. I had such a great time there. I've been so bummed. I've had a few gigs that looked like they were going to work out and were going to get me back there, and they haven't over the last couple of years. And I have one again slated for summer that might happen. I'm not entirely sure, but I really wanted to because I want to get back to the zoo. And now seeing it doing well is just bringing me so much joy. Joy? I said joy. Joy is the joy you get from a zoo. I stand by it. Joy. Anyway, so much joy, and I'm really tired, y'all. But yeah, really excited and can't wait to get back there. And I'm so proud of and thankful for all of the keepers who stayed through all the hard times. And y'all deserve every break you're going to get right now.
Stereotypical animal podcast theme song. Here to bring you to conservation news.
All right, so like 2 weeks ago or so, we discussed that China has outlawed the traditional medicines that are made from pangolin scales, leading them to be the most trafficked animal on the earth, despite science proving that those medicines don't work. Now we have more good news for pangolins. The price of pangolin scales has fallen by somewhere between 45 and 75% in Cameroon in the last 5 years. Cameroon is the country that most of the pangolin scales have been sourced from in the shipments that have been seized in Asia. All three species that are found in Cameroon have seen huge price reductions for their scales. On top of that, Wild Aid has observed a huge decline in demand for pangolin meat, scales, and wine in China, as the government had apparently started discouraging the use of the animals before outright banning the use of the medicines that use their scales. And no, you don't need to hit the back button to make sure you heard that correctly. There is, apparently, pangolin wine. Humans do some weird-ish, y'all. That's all I'm saying. A few new species have been discovered recently. The first one is a bee species where the female has upward-pointing horns, which scientists believe she uses to access flowers, compete for resources, and defend nests. Based on these horns, the bee has been named the Lucifer bee, with the Latin name being Megachile lucifer. Now, to me, Megachile sounds like big child, so I'm officially calling this animal the big child Satan bee from now on. And scientists have also discovered a new pink sea anemone species that is into architecture. The anemone is a pale pink color, and it builds its own shell-like home, which it then shares with a hermit crab partner. The partnership is an example of mutualism in which both species benefit. The anemone secretes a shell-like covering that extends and serves as the crab shell, growing with the animal rather than requiring the crab to keep finding new shells, as they often do. In exchange, the anemone gets additional protection from the crab, and it appears as though both animals share their food with each other, so each wins there. So yeah, just an amazing example of nature just, naturing. I think is really cool. In other news, just one quick story this week. Earlier this week, the Cricket Wildlife Center in Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, was buffeted by a windstorm that damaged multiple enclosures. 3 African servals escaped during the storm, and while 2 have been found and returned, the third one remains at large. Well, I guess technically at small, since they are pretty small cats. I guess you would technically say that the remaining serval remains at small, but with at-large ears and at-large legs, if you really want to get technical.
Animal, animal, animal holidays. Animal, animal, animal holidays.
All right, it is November, which is Manatee Awareness Month, and for your individual days, we don't have a lot. It's the 17th is Sea Star Day, and then the 19th is 2 days, but it's a cheat. It's World Anteater Day and World Tamandua Day. But tamanduas are just anteaters. They're called lesser anteaters, though they're not lesser, than the giant anteaters. They're great. They're amazing. We love them. My buddy Andrew's going to be mad at me for saying lesser, but, I agree. Same thing with the lesser pandas. That's what people call red pandas, but we know that's wrong. They ain't lesser than those bears. But yeah, so that's it, though. Those are your 2 days. You get 3 holidays, and one of them, or 2 of them, are really just the same thing. But one is more exclusionary, I guess. And those are your animal holidays for the week. All right, so there you have it. Another episode of Rossifari Zoo News. I want to thank everyone for sending stuff in. There's been so much cool stuff lately. I've been trying to hit the highlights, but I've been doing a whole lot of. I feel like a lot of the stuff I get sent lately is like everything is a huge deep dive. And even though I can't go into them all on the podcast right away, I'm fascinated, and I've been doing a lot of great reading lately, so thank you for that. I also want to take a moment to say thank you to my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, who is also here for stickers, Kevin Williams, and Cormac McMuffin. Meow. And I want to say thank you to everyone who contributed to this week's episode, including Anya Keene, Colleen Linehan, Kim Cooley-Croninger, Carrie Kirkpatrick, Kevin Williams, Emily Rockbuck, Dr. Natalie Taco, Jess Wells, Strix, Dr. Laura Shank, Barbara Bennett, April Taylor, Michael Sebastian, Crystal Chapman, Kristen Khalil, Anna McEachran, Holly Page, Jacob Zinn, Marianne Rossi, Ann Yoshioka, Mark Hansen, Ali Malensky, Kay Malensky,
The Malenskys.
Sherry Weiss, Daniel Cohen, Madeline Weaver, Dr. Zoe Rossi, Kristen Dickey, Jamie Chavez, Miles Rossi, Maddie Pads, Jay Meredith, Becca Robinson, and Sarah Gilsel. Thank you all so much. We'll be back here on Tuesday with a brand new interview episode, and then back here on Friday with some more zoo news. And until then, remember, friends, the words, newsy credits backwards, are Steiderk Yiswen. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo. No outtake this week because I literally nailed the entire recording process except for when I said Zoe and then quickly rebounded, implying that that's my word for the joy that zoos bring you, and none of you ever cottoned on to the fact that it was actually a mistake. Nailed it!